Brace yourself, because what I'm about to tell you might be the wildest HOA disaster you've ever heard. I've lived in California for years, and out of all the absurd HOA nonsense I've dealt with, this one takes the crown. It began in mid-June, when the heat felt unbearable, and the entire neighborhood carried an odd, tense energy. That's when I started noticing something strange about my mail. The envelopes looked off, corners creased, seals loose, as if someone else had already touched them. Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe for premium HOA chaos and drama. At first, I brushed it aside. I figured maybe the post office had been sloppy. Perhaps the summer humidity had weakened the adhesive. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the same thing kept happening. Day after day, my letters didn't feel fresh from the mail truck. They looked tampered with, disturbed, almost invaded. The thought lingered in the back of my mind, but I kept forcing myself to ignore it. That worked until one piece of missing mail turned my unease into full-blown panic. I had applied for a passport renewal. That's not the kind of document you can just misplace and shrug off. Weeks passed, and nothing showed up. I checked the mailbox every morning before work, every evening after getting home, even once late at night, when anxiety wouldn't let me sleep. Still, there was nothing. My nerves were frayed. Eventually, I didn't take it anymore and called the Passport Services Division. The agent calmly checked their system, then said the words that made my stomach drop. It was sent out last week. That was it. That was the moment everything snapped into focus. This wasn't someone casually peeking anymore. Someone was stealing. And not harmless junk mail or grocery flyers. This was federal, high-stakes material. I stood in front of my mailbox that night, staring at it as if it had personally betrayed me. The idea of a stranger rummaging through my private information made my skin crawl. Who would be bold enough to do that? My mind raced through possibilities. Porch pirates who'd gotten bored with packages and moved on to letters? A scammer hunting for checks, bank details, or worse, identity theft? Or could it be someone closer? A neighbor? That thought unsettled me the most. If it were someone nearby, that meant they knew my schedule. They knew when I wasn't watching. That night, sleep barely came. My thoughts circled around one undeniable truth. Someone was out there, and they were targeting me. Before we go any further, tell us in the comments where you're watching the story from. The very next day, I did what any reasonable homeowner would do. I decided to catch the thief. A missing passport wasn't a minor inconvenience, it was serious. So I went straight to the hardware store and bought a set of security cameras. I installed one across the street with a clear view of my mailbox, and hid another in my yard, disguised as a garden light. Now, I had eyes on everything. For 3 days straight, nothing happened. The footage showed kids riding bikes, delivery drivers dropping off packages, and the occasional squirrel stealing seeds from my flower bed. I started doubting myself. Maybe I really was being paranoid. Maybe the mail had simply been delayed. But then came the 4th day. I was scrolling through the footage, half distracted, when I noticed movement near my mailbox. The figure moved slowly, deliberately too careful to be innocent. My stomach sank. I paused the video and zoomed in. My jaw tightened so hard, I thought it might crack. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a porch pirate. It wasn't the mail carrier. It was Karen. Yes, Karen, our beloved HOA president. The self-appointed ruler of the neighborhood. The woman who sent violation notices for trash cans left out 5 minutes too long, who measured lawns with the ruler, who once fined a neighbor for having the wrong curtains. And now there she was, caught red-handed, digging through my mailbox like it was communal property. I printed the screenshots and marched straight to her house. Care to explain this? I demanded, shoving the image into her hands. She barely looked at the image before letting out a dismissive laugh and rolling her eyes. This? Oh, please. You think that's me? You must be kidding, she scoffed. Anyone can Photoshop these days. You could get yourself in serious trouble making false accusations like this. I stood there, stunned by the sheer audacity. I had clear, time-stamped footage, and somehow she was acting like I was the one committing a crime. She didn't hesitate for a second. That smug little smile on her face told me everything. Karen truly believed she was untouchable. I could have gone straight to the police. I could have filed a federal complaint and ended it right there. But that would have been far too easy for her. If Karen wanted to play dirty, I was more than willing to get my hands muddy. And I promised myself she would never see what was coming. I dropped the polite homeowner routine entirely. Karen had crossed a line, and that smirk she wore while denying everything replayed in my mind as an awful song stuck on repeat. If she thought she was above consequences, fine. I'd make sure she felt the ground shake beneath her feet. I wasn't about to lose any more mail, and I definitely wasn't going to let her keep laughing at me. So, I went full old school petty revenge. I started researching, digging through forums, watching videos, and even asking a friend who worked in electrical maintenance for general advice. I wanted something that wouldn't land me in jail, but would leave a permanent impression burned into her memory. That's when the idea formed. I decided to rig my mailbox with a mild electric jolt. Nothing lethal, just enough to make her yelp and regret every nosy decision she'd ever made. I bought what I needed and spent an entire weekend in my garage putting it together. Strangely enough, it was almost calming. I carefully wired everything, ran the cables cleanly, and connected the mailbox to a concealed switch inside my house. I tested it cautiously, flipping the switch, tapping lightly, and watching a small spark snap across the metal. Perfect. For safety, I kept it turned off most of the time, planning to activate it only at the right moment. Based on the camera footage, Karen usually made her move around 3:00 p.m., assuming everyone was at work. So, I set the stage. That day, I pulled my car out of the driveway and parked it several blocks away to make it look like I was gone. Inside, I waited like a hunter in a blind, coffee in hand, eyes locked on the live camera feed. At noon, the mail carrier arrived, dropped off my letters, and left. Then, right on schedule, at exactly 3:00, Karen appeared. She scanned the street, then strutted toward my mailbox with that smug confidence she wore like armor. She fiddled with the latch and leaned in. The second her fingers slipped inside, I flipped the switch. The sharp crackle echoed through the air, and Karen's scream could have been heard across the entire block. She jolted backward, flailing, her hair puffing up like she'd stuck her finger in an outlet. And yes, it was all captured in glorious HD. She dropped the mail as if it were radioactive, shrieking loud enough to send birds scattering from the trees. Staggering back, she clutched her hand, hair frizzed out like a deranged cartoon character. Curtains twitched. Neighbors leaned out windows, some even stepping onto their lawns to see what was happening. Realizing she had an audience, Karen tried desperately to save face. "It shocked me," she wailed, stomping her foot like an overgrown toddler. "This mailbox is rigged. This is illegal." She spun around, clearly hoping someone would back her up, but instead, people were struggling not to laugh. A teenager across the street pulled out his phone and started recording. Within minutes, her scream became the soundtrack of the neighborhood group chat. Karen grabbed the dropped mail, shoved it onto my porch, and attempted to walk away with what little dignity she had left. Unfortunately for her, her hair was still standing straight up, as she'd just wrestled a toaster. The harder she tried to look unfazed, the louder the laughter grew. By the next morning, screenshots from the video were already circulating online. Her wide-eyed, mid-shock expression turned into an instant meme. The captions were ruthless. "When you find out stealing mail is a federal crime," and "Karen meets karma." And here's the twist: Karen never called the police. She could have, but she knew the second she did, my footage of her tampering with my mailbox would come out. Federal mail theft isn't an HOA violation you can fine away. It's serious time. So instead, she went silent. Completely silent. For a woman who loved sending violation notices at 2 in the morning, that quiet was incredibly satisfying. Still, the neighborhood didn't forget. Every barbecue, every block party, every casual conversation somehow circled back to the zap. And the best part? My mail was never touched again. The end. Like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserved? Let me know in the comments below.